Look at Prue Leith, like before she was on Bake Off, she had like rimless glasses and she had very understated styling. There's an argument to be said she looked older then than she does now.
Do you sell anti-aging glasses? I'm asking for a friend. Dan Scott is one of the leading experts in eyewear styling in the UK. Having started out as a musician, Dan was on the road to pop stardom when he decided to follow a very different path.
So I went to train in London as a personal stylist to grab what I could from the personal styling world and then bring that to the optics world.
Dan's business has featured in the Financial Times, and he's been asked to style the actors on some of Britain's best-known soaps.
And action!
So like EastEnders just dropped in my inbox.
I'm Nicola Sands, and today Dan Scott shares his vision of shaking up the optics industry and growing a business that will transform the way eyewear is perceived. Dan, thanks very much for coming on the SMB podcast today.
That's all right, my pleasure.
You weren't always an eyewear stylist. You originally wanted to be a pop star. Is that right?
Yeah, I suppose that's what I originally was my passion, I guess, playing music, playing piano, playing guitar. Learned piano from the age of 8 years old, guitar from 13, self-taught. And yeah, that was my original passion.
You were actually quite successful as a performer, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. It was amazing, really, how well that we did. Was
it a group that you were in?
Yeah, I set up a band. We were called Daniel and the Scandals, so it's quite a fun name. And we had this like pop rock band, so it was my band really. And we started touring the country. We did schools tours. We had songs in TV shows, on radio stations. Did radio tours and stuff as well. And yeah, it was a great time.
You were very nearly signed, weren't you?
Yeah, so I had a song called I Love You, There You Go, I Said It, and that got some coverage on an industry website called Record of the Day, and then because of that, it's followed by everyone in the music industry, and so straight off the back of that, I was suddenly in a room with Ed Sheeran's management team, and then within months in Jessie J's management team, had songs in TV shows in America, which is unbelievable, so yeah.
Why did you not carry on pursuing that? What was it that changed the course of what you were doing?
I suppose it's probably the same reason certain entrepreneurs and businesses decide to take a step back. I think every musician, they want to make it, right? And they don't want to make it, I'd say you want to play music live, you want to write your own songs, have them recorded, gigs, stuff like that. And I think that's really what you think of as a musician. But the realities of being a musician, when you're trying to make it, is you have to organise for a group of 5 guys, to get them organised at the same place, organise all the rehearsals, all the tours, try and build a fan base through doing stuff online, market your band, stuff like that. It's essentially like running a business. It's
a huge machine, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and I think I got to the point after our last UK tour when I was like, when was the last time I wrote a song? It's been about everything else. It's about kind of like getting yourself to the gigs, to the venues. You got the van, you got to pack down the gear and organise this. And it was just, I don't know, it just became about, and I just wanted to take a step back and, just wait a minute. I want to do the bit of this that I love again, and it got to the point where that was becoming less and less of what we were actually doing.
You decided you were going to pivot and do something totally different.
Yeah,
although
it wasn't really a fully decision, It wasn't like I didn't consciously think, I'm going to go into optics. It was literally basically after our last UK tour. So my band was based in Brighton. After our last tour, my rent was coming up, as well. I felt like I needed to step back and have just a break from music initially. And it was just the fact my parents are both opticians, and their dispensing optician had just left to move to Ipswich or something to be with their family. And they asked if I would come back just to help them out, whilst they were in between things, I could help glaze lenses in the lab for them and do this, that, the other. And I thought, well, it was perfect timing really, because I just needed a break. It was just nice to kind of do something different, help my mum and dad out. And it was just the fact that was around, say, August sort of time. And when I came in there to sort of work in the lab, my dad said, I know you'd never think about doing this, Dan, because you're more creative than this. But it might be, optics could be a good fallback career for you, for your music. Because what you can do is when you become qualified, you can do what's called locuming. So you can work at different practices on different days. And essentially you can almost like do a tour for 2 weeks, and then come and do locuming for a few weeks. And he pitched it to me as this flexible career.
And good idea. He sounds like a very clever man.
Yeah, like so it's just not what I expected, and I had to choose in a really short time frame because the course started in September. They said, look, we'll put you on it. If you don't like it, just leave it, sort of thing. And yeah, kind of started from there.
But you decided you wanted to do something a bit different from just the kind of standard optician work, didn't you?
Yeah, I think that's something that's slowly evolved though. Like, because my plan was not really to kind of particularly go down the optics route with any sort of particular career path. Initially, it was just, as I say, it was helping out my parents. It was a break from my music, that sort of thing. But going from being in a touring band, to then living with your parents in a sleepy town in Herefordshire, glazing lenses in a windowless room for older people was quite a culture shock, like from what I was doing before, signing T-shirts and all that sort of stuff. And I think it was just, my dad could see that it was a bit bland for me. So what changed it really was that he put me in charge of choosing the frames for the practice. Because I was like, you need to be more interesting than this. They're all just a bit bland, middle of the road, whatever. And so in doing so, I started doing some research. Started trying to find what glasses are out there, this, that, the other, and stumbled across some like really cool brands doing really bright. And I was like, oh, there are some quite cool styles. And then we started going to these trade shows, these different trade shows across the world. And then I was like, it's almost just like peeling back looking behind the curtain and seeing, oh my God, there's all this cool stuff here. And I slowly found like a passion and interest through that.
How quickly did people catch on that, the frames you were offering were going to be a bit different from what they'd seen before?
So with this, it's been a bit of a journey for me. So I started off working with my parents for 2 years in Herefordshire. Then I worked for quite high-end opticians in Manchester, where I did learn a lot. And then I went self-employed straight after that, doing the locum thing, which is the original plan, to do that and the music. And I think it was really there when I started to kind of like do the locum work, when I noticed there clearly must have been a big difference between me and maybe the standard dispensing optician they would have in, because I was doing this locum work for these different practices, and they were individually asking me to come back, train their staff. I had one guy offered me a job to train 100 opticians across the UK in eyewear styling at the time, because I trained one of his in his like group of practices, and he flew me down from Manchester to their big headquarters thing down near Heathrow Airport and stuff, and it was yeah, so I think it was there. I was like, wait a minute, there must be something more to this than what I thought. Because when you're in your own self, you're only aware of how you do things rather than necessarily how other people do things. So to you, this is like a normal thing, but clearly to others, it wasn't.
And you call yourself the Eyewear Stylist, which is really catchy.
Yeah, thanks.
Did you come up with that name?
Yeah. I think it was because, I'd noticed like various opticians across the country kind of labeling themselves as styling opticians. And I thought that's absolutely fine. But when I sort of like went to work in them, I was trying to find out, what are your style credentials? What gives you, the right, I suppose, to kind of say, I've got style advice you should listen to. Optics advice, yes, but style advice. And that was my thing, that I wanted to make sure that I was doing that. So I went to train in London as a personal stylist, so then I could grab what I could from the personal styling world, being educated on that sort of area of things, and then bring that to the optics world. So then at least I could say, look, I'm a trained personal stylist as well as a qualified optician, so it's the two together.
And what did that styling course teach you, Dan?
All sorts, really. I'll tell you what was really interesting. So the first interesting thing is colour analysis, because colour makes a huge impact on how we look, how we feel, our complexion, how we're perceived. And that was one of the big things, because obviously with colour, the closer that colour is to your face, the greater impact it's going to have on how we look, etc. Whereas if it's the wrong colour, like down by your shoes and stuff like that, you're not going to notice it so much, so it's not going to have as big an impact. So I thought colour really does have a dramatic impact on how we look. So that's one of the things I grabbed. But what was also interesting is things like when you're styling for body shapes, it's a lot about balance, in terms of, wherever your body shape is, how we can kind of make that. For a woman, it's more hourglass shape is the ideal sort of like look you try and go for.
Yes,
so if someone's a bit, wider, so in a certain position, you try and balance it out by widening out other areas. And I noticed a lot of crossover with that with face shapes for me. A lot of the way that I style for face shapes is similarly to how they style for body shapes in terms of creating that balance in the look.
Interesting. So do you, when somebody comes into you and says, I want some frames. Can you tell straight away what's going to suit them?
There's an element of, you've got your genetics, right? In terms of the bridge of your nose, your eye color, your hair color, your skin tone, all of these things, right? And so inevitably, there's going to be certain styles and colors that will look good on you. The difference is with personal styling is I need to find out more from you. And that's the thing. So I would never just kind of go, oh, you should have these glasses, because if I did that, then you might have a certain connotation. You're like, oh no, that reminds me of my mum, or I've seen someone else that looks like that. Oh no, I hate those ones with the nose pads, or no, that's too light for me. So I'd be just doing a complete disservice by doing that. But yes, in terms of just ideas of what might suit someone, you can have those sort of ideas in your head, but yeah, obviously you need to chat through someone properly to help do the proper job.
You do believe then that glasses can actually reflect your personality?
Oh yeah, gosh, look at Prue Leith. Before she was on Bake Off, she had like rimless glasses and she had very understated styling, and there's an argument to be said she looked older then than she does now. You see Prue Leith now every week. How many different pairs does she have? She's got these bright colours, and now she's actually got her own eyewear range as well. And that's completely transformed it. Think about, say, Alan Carr. Imagine him without glasses. It's hard to. You got John Lennon with his sort of round, tinted ones that are iconic. Bono from U2. There's so many different people that would look completely different without their glasses. Elton John, prime example.
Absolutely. I mean, it is vital to their personal brand, isn't it?
Yeah.
Elton John is a prime example.
Yeah. It's getting a bit full circle for me with that, because obviously Elton John, is his company Rocket Management that I nearly got signed to.
Wow.
At the time, and it's just weird to think that I nearly got signed to them, so could have potentially met him that way, whereas now he's obviously just released his own eyewear range this last year, so maybe through some sort of circular thing I'll eventually meet him through the eyewear route instead of the music route. I don't know.
Meet the Rocket Man himself.
I know.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But you've actually had an amazing opportunity to style the actors on, is it Coronation Street?
Yeah, so we've done Coronation Street and EastEnders as well.
How did that come about?
I'll tell you what's mad is with my business. So I launched it only in mid 2021. I think I got my studio space in June 21, did the launch event in September. And a lot of the stuff that has happened for me has actually been people coming to me. It's not been me going the other way around. So EastEnders just dropped in my inbox, in my email, because I'd done a video showing how I do glasses for TV and film called No Reflection Lenses. There's a lot of issues in TV and film production with the amount of camera and lights. Obviously, we've got camera and lights on us now, where you'd get a lot of reflections in the glasses lenses.
Absolutely right.
Yeah,
yes.
And so with these lenses, they're very clever in terms of they adjusted the angle of reflection significantly. So you'd have to turn your head a lot till you can see it. And then when you can see any reflection, it's at a bandwidth of light that our human eye doesn't notice so much. So they're perfect for that sort of situation for influencers with ring lights or TV actors in film. And I've done this video showcasing how they worked on my website. And then people must have known that this was a problem in the industry anyway, and been searching, how do we get no reflections off glasses or something? And then I must be popping up because no one's really sort of talking about that.
You can actually tell that you're a true creative, because some of the content you create around what you do is so clever.
Oh, thank you.
Have you always been good at doing that sort of thing?
I guess so. I mean, I think I do enjoy it. I enjoy playing around with it and making the content quite fun and different. But I don't know if it's because I'm neurodiverse. I got diagnosed with ADHD earlier this year, which makes so much sense now. I think maybe I just think about things a bit differently, and so that comes across maybe in the content, that there's so many sort of different ideas. I remember speaking to another optician who's like, I don't even know where I'd start with trying to think of videos and ideas. I'd probably get stuck after a week. Whereas I'm constantly coming up with new ideas and different ways of thinking about things. And the same with a lot of the eyewear companies, both frame and lens companies. I feel like I can spot their unique sort of selling points and what's different about them before they can. Because what you find is, particularly say lenses, right? It's very scientific. the way they think about it. So you get a lot of these sort of scientists that are trying to show you these lenses. So I spotted these lenses in Italy like a year or so ago, right? And it was this. Right, there's nice little lens showcase at this exhibitors, and they had all these like laser beams sort of firing across, and I was like, what is this? Like, you know, what's going on here? And they go, oh yeah, well this one stops infrared, this one stops UV, does that? I was like, yeah, but why does that matter? Do you know what I mean? Like, and why does it matter? And you go, oh right, well these ones, they stop you developing dark circles around the eyes, you know, and slows the development of wrinkles. And you're like, yeah.
So you can... I sounded a bit too interested in that then. Yes, I mean, really. So you can get beautifying glasses.
Yeah, exactly.
Or kind of beauty...
like anti-aging
glasses.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's anti-aging glasses. I was like, that's what you lead with. You know, you don't show people, oh, this blocks bits of infrared, bits of UV, this sort of stuff. You say in massive letters, anti-aging glasses slows the development of wrinkles around your eyes.
Do you sell anti-aging glasses? I'm asking for a friend.
Yes, yeah, I do, yeah. And that's the thing. And what is really nice is the fact that it's colorless as well. So it doesn't cosmetically. There's no sort of like downside. You don't see some weird color or tint or anything. It just looks completely clear to the end user. But yeah, essentially it absorbs both UV and infrared. It's infrared that would normally cause the muscle tissue of the skin to weaken and therefore wrinkles to develop. But by the lens absorbing the infrared, it stops that muscle tissue from weakening, so protects that thin area of skin around the eye from weakening and developing wrinkles. So yeah, very clever.
Amazing technology. That's so clever. Do you look at people, Dan, when they're wearing glasses and think, oh, you know, they don't fit quite right, or that's not quite the wrong colour? I mean, it must be hard when in the industry you are in.
Yeah,
not to do that.
It can be tough. It can be tough sometimes, especially, you know, when you're seeing TV and you're seeing some people and celebrities that are kind of like dressed really well up to here, like, you know, up to the shoulders, and then you just see people with kind of these glasses that are splayed out, not sitting right, reflecting and stuff, and you're like, how are you not taking care of how your face looks, like, you know, of everything else? And these people clearly probably are image conscious and with a lot of other things. It's really interesting, the psychology behind eyewear and how people treat it, you know, whether people have got them on their head and stuff like that or down the end of their nose.
It's not a good thing, is it, to wear your glasses on your head?
It's not ideal. On your head, yes, like it is on your face, but certainly not resting, because it's going to splay the sides and cause them to loosen. Eventually, when you do want to wear it where it should be, it's going to slip down the nose and things like that.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And how's your business going? I know you've got your studio in Manchester.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's a fairly recent business. So how's it going at the moment? What are your plans with it?
Yeah, good. I mean, as I say, I don't know how many businesses launch and within the first month come in the Financial Times, like, you know, and then since then have TV shows come to them. And
you were featured in the Financial Times.
Yeah.
Yes. How did that come about?
Again, they just came straight into my inbox. They just wanted my opinion on sort of eyewear and styles and what would suit and what trends would work. I think one of the editors was maybe getting glasses for the first time and things. So she probably wanted some secret advice for herself, which is quite funny. But yeah, again, just came directly to me. I think it's because what I do is quite unique. Like, no one else is really doing it to the extent that I'm doing it. So I think basically, when I turn up to networking events, for example, I think people are probably used to meeting, hello, that's an accountant, financial advisor, and they go around stuff. They go, what? And they do the classic, what do you do? I say, oh, I style people in eyewear. And some moment seems to go in their head where it goes, they're like, what? That's a thing. They go, yeah. And they're like, oh my God, what would suit me? You know, and it just seems to go like that. I think because I think it's a real need and a want that could really help people that's not really being fulfilled at the moment. Loads of places you can get a great sight test, yes. But when you leave the testing room, 1,000 glasses on a wall, people don't know where to begin. Absolutely.
It can be very overwhelming, actually. And the glasses I have, I mean, they're very sort of bog standard. They're black and, well, to be honest, I chose them because they look like a safe option.
Yeah.
I think we'll have a chat after the podcast.
But it's interesting the way people...
I need to upgrade my glasses.
Yeah. But it's interesting the way people think about things like black, for example. So that's what's quite useful with the colour analysis. Technically, winter seasons are the only ones that really, truly suit black really, really well. But obviously, for example, quite fair, light blue eyes, light blonde hair. Black's actually quite bold. It's quite stark against the skin. I think it's just maybe just because it's more commonly seen, but it's not necessarily something that's going to suit as well as potentially some other options might do. So it's kind of like it's safe in the sense that it's common, but also it's quite bold in the way that it sits against the skin if we've got fairer skin. So it's kind of interesting if you weren't looking for a bolder option, but you technically have done that in a way. It's interesting, the psychology behind it.
Definitely is. So Dan, you're obviously a very engaging, charismatic person, and you've brought the business so far, but how are you going to scale? Because obviously there's only one you.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, that is something that obviously I've realised, that the bottleneck is at me as it stands. But I think long term, I like to think that I can kind of train other people up to do what I do, because the way I do it is very process based. You see, I take every client through quite a rigid sort of process in my mind. It's always very personal to the individual. But just like you'd go to, say, Tony and Guy for your haircut or something, or I'm trying to think of some other brands where you know what to expect, like if you went to a different McDonald's or whatever, any sort of like franchise business really, where you go through that same process. I think the thing is for me is to get it really busy as it is now, and then train up a member of staff to be able to offer the level of service that I do. And then the moment we've got that first member of staff, we can maybe look at our first concession, and then look at building it out from there. So I'd like to see the Eyewear Stylist in various locations. And rather than it being Dan is the eyewear stylist, it's more Dan is the founder of the eyewear stylist.
So it's an eyewear stylist method.
Yes, exactly.
That is rolled out.
Yes,
absolutely, which has been founded by yourself. I completely understand. And how much interest have you had from other investors and people wanting to get involved?
Yeah, I think this is the thing. I mean, I've always had people interested. I think when it comes to investors and business partnership, it's quite a big decision, isn't it? Like picking the right person. It was mad, actually. I was at my cousin's wedding last week, and I was sat next to who turned out to be a massive multimillionaire who designs stages for arena tours for the biggest artists in the world, like Beyonce and whoever you can think of, Eminem, Limp Bizkit, and he started chatting to me about my business. You see, he found it really, really interesting. He's like, oh my gosh. And because I'm going through an investor sort of round at the moment, he's like, how much are you going to invest? Have you signed that deal yet? I want to invest now, just from chatting to me. I think because people's ears just prick up at the concept of it. I think it's something that people maybe have not overly had in the front of their minds. But the moment you sort of you bring it to front, they go, of course. Eyewear style, people don't know what suits. This would be really helpful. And so it seems to click. Lots of interest. I think it's just about picking the right people to get involved with.
Absolutely. I mean, what does success mean to you? What is the ultimate aim?
I think I sometimes struggle with this question, especially with business coaches, because business coaches just ask you how much you want to earn, and I just don't think that way. It's just so arbitrary to kind of pick a random number. I think for me, the success really would be if I could sort of scale it and have numerous eyewear stylists, and then I'm starting to help a lot of people that previously didn't know what worked for them. So just doing that, and I think in general I've got a wider mission to sort of educate the general public in terms of not just, I suppose, what styles suit them, but also on judging value for money. I think if you think about sustainability as well and how that's becoming a bigger issue with clothes, I don't know why that's not been talked about with glasses. Because think how much plastic waste there is, in terms of not just frames, but the lenses in there as well. We have to sort of do what we can to sort of get the industry better, but also people right now, if you show someone 2 pairs of black glasses and ask them which is more expensive, first off, would they be able to tell just from saying I'm not sure? Then let's say you could pick which one was more expensive, would you be able to tell me why? And if you can't do that, you can't judge value for money with glasses. If you can't judge value for money with glasses, and I think they're both the same quality, I'm just going to choose a cheaper one. you know, because I don't understand why one's better. So I think there's a lot, I want to kind of like get people more understanding why something is more expensive than something else, so they can then make an informed decision. Because I think there's so many people out there not making informed decisions at the moment and choosing the cheapest just because they don't know any better, and not understanding all of the issues that are going to come. Like, I know certain glasses I've got that have lasted me 10 years and will still continue to last me years and years on, whereas other people bring glasses that I know within 6 months are going to fall apart.
Absolutely. You know? So it's kind of educating people, as well. Who in particular inspires you on your journey? Who do you look up to?
There's various people that inspire me, both, I suppose, in my industry and outside. One that I always come back to is Jeremy Scott from Moschino, because I think, for me, like, I'd say, like, I want to create like an aspirational brand in terms of it's something I want to get you excited about eyewear. You know, it'd be too bland for me to do loads of cheap middle of the road glasses. I can't get excited about it. So start showing people, oh, cool, you can get glasses made out of coffee beans or out of leather or stone and vinyl records. You know, it's something really aspirational, really exciting. And I think, but I don't want it to be too bland and in terms of colour. Like, you think a lot of the top high-end brands in the world, like you've got Versace and Gucci and these brands, it's a lot of black and white, you know, in terms of their branding and how things look. Whereas what I love with what Jeremy Scott did with Moschino was just threw so much fun into it, you know. It's really creative and really enjoyable. He puts loads of colour everywhere and it's really playful with everything that he does. And I just kind of like love to do that with the eyewear world. Think about the eyewear world. As you said, black is so safe, easy, like the middle of the road, that sort of stuff. Fine. I just want to get some colour in there, some fun, some excitement, get people enjoying glasses rather than thinking them as just a functional, like, scientific tool. So yeah, Jeremy's like really inspired me with what he's done. I've got some of his shoes recently with wings on.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh yeah, and you were saying you can make glasses with vinyl.
Yeah, and that's great.
Like out of a record.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, it was something I discovered again. So every year I travel to different international trade shows, whether it's Milan or I was in Paris not long ago, to try and discover what's the latest out there. And there's these guys in Budapest, in Hungary, where they handmake glasses, repurposing vinyl records. So the initial thinking behind it was a sustainable mission to repurpose vinyl that would have gone to waste. So their thing is they repurpose 3 tons of vinyl per year that would have gone to landfill, that they've basically kind of turned into glasses, where they laminate the vinyl record onto the front of the frame here with the acetate exterior, so you can feel the vinyl grooves.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's really cool. And certain ones they've done some limited edition ones because they must have got tired of people asking, well, what is the vinyl on the front? And them going, well, we don't know because it's one of the repurposed ones. So they've done some limited edition collaborations with bands like AC/DC, and I recently got some made from Prince's Purple Rain album. Wow. Which is amazing. So it's his original sort of Purple Rain purple vinyl. And there's only 120 in the world, and I've managed to secure like a set of 5 for my studio. And so they would actually go up in value over time because they're rare, you know, and they will never make them again. They only do limited edition runs. So a bit like those rare sneakers you find, you know, that whole StockX and sneaker market where people buy them because they know they'll go up. It's kind of like starting to happen a little bit with eyewear now as well.
Amazing. What's the next step? Because you're only still very young. Mm-hmm. So I know it's a kind of age-old question, but where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
5 years? It's where you'd like to be and where you'll end up being. I think, like, as I say, I would love to start scaling the business, like, so we've kind of got more eyewear stylists in more locations. And then also, it'd be great if I could have a platform to do some more of this educational stuff and inspire people with eyewear as well. So, I mean, do you
think that's the performer in you, Dan? As well, you know, you like to get your message out there. And
maybe, I suppose I do love meeting people, but I think I think I've just got a passion for it, and I think it's just I wish more. I have so many interesting conversations, right, when I meet individuals talking about eyewear and their minds are open and everyone goes, oh my gosh, I didn't realize there was so much to it. And so, but they love it and they love finding out about it. So I just love to do it on a larger scale because I think just when you are aware of what's possible and what can be done, then it can be so exciting. And so it's a shame that I'm doing this on an individual level, like meeting individuals, and they're going, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. It'd be great to kind of, if everyone finds it so interesting, then it'd be nice to have some form of platform where we can communicate that, and we get more people on this sort of like eyewear hype and getting more confidence and self-esteem and a bit more uniqueness. Yeah.
What are the main challenges that you face at the moment?
Main challenges with the business, I think one is that I don't have a retail shop. So I've not got passing trade in that sense. It's very deliberate, that, because it's appointment only. My appointments, they take about 90 minutes from start to finish. And with it just being me starting it off, you know, if I was in a store and people are wandering across and I was constantly going, hello, yeah, have you got anything 50 quid, mate? It wouldn't really work. So because I've got a private studio space, it means that I don't have passing trade to the same degree. So I've got to do more marketing, get myself out there so people find out about me. So that's one of the challenges. Obviously with the ranges that I carry as well, like I do some really exciting eyewear ranges, but it's not necessarily the cheapest to buy. So in terms of growing the stock, that's something that's just gonna have to like evolve like over time. There's an ideal stock. I'd love to have so many, like, you know, thousands of glasses to choose from, would be amazing, but there's a limit to what I can start off with. So obviously just cash flow at the start of any business is a bit of a challenge. Those are probably the main two, I would say.
Have you got a mentor at the moment, somebody that's helping you on this journey?
I've just kind of got an investor and business partner coming in at the moment, which I think is going to be really valuable, because they've scaled to have a number of opticians, you know, so they kind of know what it's like to sort of like grow the business. They're open-minded about the way I want to do things, because mine's not a typical optician's business model. You know, I don't do sight tests, for example, which is, I suppose, controversial in some ways, but yeah, I think now it's nice to finally have someone I can chat to. I've always had my dad, you know, because my parents are opticians, like, you know, and they started their business from scratch like 30 years ago. My mum's works at one of the opticians, my dad works at the other, and they swap and change and things. So I've always gone to them for advice, because they have lived through starting from scratch, building it up.
What do they think about what you're doing?
Yeah, I think I'd like to think they're quite proud of me. You know, I think it's always really nice, like, to get the respect of your peers. So what was really a huge moment for me was like last year in London. This year actually in London. I was running the catwalk at 100% Optical, which is one of the top eyewear exhibitions, well, certainly the top eyewear exhibition in the UK in London, and showing the whole industry what's on trend in eyewear at the moment, how to style for face shapes, to running panel discussions, you know, and presenting and things. And I think it's just mad to think that it's come from me not having any interest in wanting to go to optics. It always seemed too boring for me, to then like leading the way, like, you know, in sort of like how the industry hopefully should be going. You
are becoming already a thought leader in the industry, which is really exciting in itself.
Thanks. Yeah, it's one of these things. All I'm doing is just following my passion. You know, anything else that comes from it is great. I think it's just when someone's natural and you care about something and you're expressing your passion, I think that comes across. I think I saw an interesting thing the other day. I can't remember what the director's name was, but they were asking him about his writing process for film scripts and things like that. And he said the audience comes last to him when he's doing it, because I think the moment you're trying to do something for other people, it becomes that you're trying to guess at what other people like and what they do, and you end up with this not as good quality thing at the end. Whereas I think if you come from heart, just do something that makes you happy, you know, what makes you tick, inevitably other people tend to find that they have similar sort of interests as well, and kind of go along that journey with you. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is focus on the business that I just imagined I wanted to create, and then I think there's other people out there that have a similar thing. They're probably tired of this similar way of doing things, because I think unfortunately the current business model for optics I don't think is sustainable. Essentially with sight tests, there's no money in sight tests, so opticians actually lose money for every sight test they do, which is quite shocking to a lot of people on the NHS. So essentially the average overheads for an optician in the UK is roughly, for the time it takes to do a sight test, about £70. keep the lights on, pay the staff, the overheads, all of this sort of stuff. Whereas the NHS give you £21.31. It might have gone up slightly recently, but maybe by like 20p or something like that. So essentially you're down £50 before even anyone's chosen any frames and lenses. So I can't see NHS sight tests being sustainable like in the long-term future anyway. It's like a lost leader. And so I think things have to change, and we need people to understand how to judge value for money with glasses and stuff as well. So not everyone's going for the cheapest, because if everyone goes for the cheapest as well, it's going to be terrible for the planet, for one thing, because you're going to get loads of poor quality products that are throwaway. It's not going to be able to be recycled and this sort of stuff. And also, people aren't going to have quality glasses that fit or look good. So we do need to start educating people how to judge value for money, what suits and stuff as well, if the eyewear industry is to continue to be successful in the future, because I just don't think the way things are currently run are sustainable, and especially the competition of online websites that do cheap glasses and stuff as well. So people are just coming, getting the sight test, taking prescriptions, buying them online with no service, cheap. You're going to find people with probably wrong prescriptions or wrongly centered glasses, which are not going to help them have issues. And then when they want to come and get their health checks, it's not covered by the NHS and stuff like that. So I think something needs to change. This is the way that I'm doing things. The one unfortunate thing for me is that someone has to go somewhere to get a sight test before they come and see me. But I think it's up to opticians to price accordingly for what they do. So I'd like to think that hopefully opticians in the future just start charging what they're worth, and maybe just kind of fight back with the NHS from what they're paying at the moment. They want to do what's best for the patient at the end of the day, and they want to make sure they're getting that healthcare and everything. But there's this kind of fear about sort of gosh, if we went private and charged what we should be charging, that everyone would just leave to go. So there's always someone that will just go, we'll do a free sight test. It's like a loss leader. And then everyone comes to the lowest common denominator. So everyone feels like they need to kind of do that. Whereas I just think that, we need to start standing the ground and just start charging what you're worth for the sight test. You should at least at minimum be breaking even. I mean, if I told you I've got this idea for this business, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to create something where I offer you a service which costs me £70, but you only have to pay £20 for it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a great business model, does it?
Does it? But then I'll be completely reliant on you possibly choosing a product at the end of it, which might make up the difference. It's so I just think, something's got to change.
But if somebody comes to you though, Dan, for and your glasses are the ones I've seen, absolutely stunning, but is it going to cost them a lot of money?
I think everything's relative to what they want. As I say, what's a lot of money to one person is not to someone else.
Is there a range?
There's ranges. So for example, mine's probably ranged from £250 to £595 for the frames, for example. You tend to, in terms of judging value for money, anything up to £100 in general tends to be mass produced, maybe made in China, spring-loaded joints, things like that. 100 to 200, you tend to find there's a lot of stuff that's still mass produced, but maybe it's got a brand name on it, maybe like a Ray-Ban, a Hugo Boss, or those sorts of things. Fine. Above £200, you start to get better quality materials like Italian acetate and more cured acetates. The longer the acetate is cured, the more rigid the frame is, the more it holds its shape, the longer lasting it'll be. And then once you're getting above £300, you're getting those better quality materials, but more interest in the design and how it's made, more complexity to the design. There's more hands sort of going into the process rather than it being machine made, things like that. So as you're kind of going up the price points, you also tend to be going up in the quality level, and I can't get excited about poor quality glasses. I just selling just cheap poor quality glasses, and as I say, it's all relative. If you wear glasses every single day of your life, it's so different to someone who's just off and on for a bit of reading. So that's why my first question is always, when do you wear your glasses? Because that makes the biggest difference to begin with.
And they do say the eyes are the windows to the soul.
Yes, they do.
No, I see what you're saying. It's absolutely fascinating talking to you about this, Dan. Thank you so much for your insights. But just one final question as well. Have you thought of any ideas about how people stop losing their glasses? Because my dad in particular, he seems to lose them every 5 minutes.
What does he? Well, so does he wear his for only reading?
He does, yes.
Right. So that's the thing, I guess. So with that as well, you can have a varifocal, which means you can keep, or a bifocal for him, whatever's easiest, where you can just keep the glasses on.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah, then you can keep them on, then you don't have to keep taking them off. And then in doing so, just embrace wearing glasses. You know, there's nothing that should hopefully stop you if it's and it's finding out, why don't you just have a varifocal or a bifocal where you've got them on. Just find out what those reasons are, and then we can tackle that one by one.
Dan, thanks so much for coming in today. It's been absolutely fascinating to hear, and you're obviously so passionate about what you do as well. So where can people find you?
So the easiest way, you can go to my website, which is just theeyewearstylist.co.uk. And also I do a lot of stuff on Instagram. So it's at Eyewear_stylist. That's where you find most of my content. I find that easiest. I do have a TikTok, which is like Dan the Eyewear Stylist, but it's separated by underscores, so it's like Dan_the_Eyewear_stylist. But yeah, in general, the eyewearstylist.co.uk, and it's got all my contact details to give me a WhatsApp, or, you know, ask a question, send me an email, or whatever. And
yeah, and your content, as I said earlier, absolutely fantastic. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you, appreciate that.
This podcast was brought to you by Applehead Media.